Eric Mangini, Fox Sports analyst, joining us. He does on Fridays. We love that. Let me start with a Mike Williams story. When coaches are consistent, you create an identity. Okay? Rex Ryan had his critics, right? He's kind of consistent. You kind of knew what you're getting, right? So I look at Brandon Staley. I don't doubt his intelligence. But he wouldn't play guys starters in the preseason. It's meaningless. Then why are you starting him in week 18? So that the messaging to me as a football player, as a staff is, what are we? Last year he was Mr. Big Risk on fourth down. This year they scaled back. What are we? Mike Williams now is missing this game. Eric, he's a tough cover. He's a component. What do you make of his decision to play him? Where do you fall on that?
Yeah, it is hard to rectify when you don't play your guys in the preseason because they're meaningless games. You don't want to get them hurt. And then you have a meaningless game and you're trying to play your guys. And I get it. You don't want rust and you want guys to be sharp going into the playoffs. But it's a meaningless game and you've got a team that's been banged up all season. Go ahead and take that opportunity to get those guys healthy. And you can't recover from a Mike Williams losing a guy like that. You can't. And everybody has a different philosophy. Tampa, they played Tom Brady almost into the to the end of the second half. So that's their philosophy. But it's you can get killed either way because if your guys go out in the playoffs and they've had a week off and they're sloppy, then you get dinged because you rested them and they're not sharp. But losing a player that can have such an impact on a game in a meaningless game the week before you have the playoffs, it's a tough sell in the locker room, and it's probably going to be a tough sell from ownership perspective.
So it's interesting with Seattle, San Francisco. You were with young Tom in the playoffs, and Belichick a little less reluctant to dial it up and let him go. So here's Brock Purdy, and I can see a scenario. It's going to be wet and rainy and windy. Purdy fumbles it. Purdy turns it over, and Kyle's like, all right, we're going to close up some playbook here. Let's get out of this thing. And I can see Seattle and Pete Carroll. All of a sudden, you get to the third quarter, it's 10-7. You got house money. I think Seattle's going to be I think they're going to give him everything. Go back to Brady early, and we're not saying Purdy is Brady, but rookies, last 9 times a rookie started in a playoff game, they're 1-8. It's different, right, Eric?
Yeah. Remember, in our first Super Bowl run, we scored 3 offensive touchdowns in the whole run. And one of those touchdowns was from Drew Brees because Tom got hurt in the AFC, or not Drew Brees, Drew Bledsoe because Tom got hurt in the AFC Championship game. And it was, we did take the perspective of we need to go out and play complementary football. We need to protect the young quarterback, play good defense, play good special teams, and we were going to win collectively. It's different going from preseason to regular season, and going from regular season to playoffs. That's a whole different level too. The intensity, the energy, the everything about it is a completely different level. And what you worry about with a young guy is that they try to do too much. Don't try to do too much. Don't try to go out and win the game for us. Just go out and do what you've been doing so far that's been so successful. I mean, his numbers are incredible for his early run.
So we got the GOAT Brady hosting Dak, who's had a weird year. Dak's never been really a sloppy guy, not a big interception guy, and now he is. So to me, when somebody, I don't think his work habit changes, it's McCarthy. What do you make? Are you concerned with Dak's explosion of multiple interception games and turnovers?
Yeah, really concerned. One of Dak's greatest attributes was protecting the football, and he's got about 40% more interceptions than his worst year.
Yeah.
Okay, and then this is through 12 games. Or his interception percentage, it's staggering. And I watched the Commanders game, the coach's copy. And there were guys sitting on routes and jumping passes and things that made it look like they truly understood where he was going to go with the ball. And sometimes when a guy like Dak gets paid what he gets paid, the pressure that's on the organization, the pressure that's on them to win, again, we get to that pushing it, that trying to be something that you're not. And when you do that, very rarely does good things happen. And look, the last game of the season, you don't want to limp in the way the Cowboys did. That was about as bad a way as you can go to the playoffs as you could get. You had a 45 quarterback rating. I mean, it was terrible way to go in.
Yeah. All right. Read a story this morning where the players support Mac Jones, and they didn't like how Bailey Zappi was handled. And I'm like, I don't know, Sark and Mac Jones, Josh and Mac Jones look pretty good. I mean, smart people, smart coaches make mistakes. I don't know. I think Bill's never lost a locker room, Eric. The story I read this morning is like, I don't know. That's like, but Dave Wanstead always says, you can lose games, don't lose the locker room. What do you make of that story?
Well, it's really interesting what's happening in New England now, because Bill had the benefit of the doubt from ownership to have an unconventional offensive staff, and that didn't really work out. And Mac Jones supposedly was going outside the organization to get help, which is understandable because there's nobody really on the staff that can give him insight from a quarterback perspective. So I get that. That's not going to make Bill happy. You keep things in the family. But going back to that benefit of the doubt, with the success that Tom's had and the way that New England struggled, you're going to lose the benefit of the doubt in the locker room from those guys, where you run through the wall knowing that if you run through the wall, that you're going to either be deep in the playoffs or have a chance to win the Super Bowl. And it hurts the benefit of the doubt externally, where great players would take less to go there. Great players would be different in New England than they were other places. And that's a hard sell now. It's a totally different equation than it has been because of what Tom's done and what New England's done.
Really is. All right, I'm on the Derek Carr bandwagon. He leads the NFL in fourth quarter comebacks since he's been in Oakland. And, I mean, we can see what Brock Purdy, you can give a C quarterback or a B quarterback a great defense, you get to the playoffs. Kenny Pickett at the end of the year, that last month, they looked like a playoff team. I don't know. I think the Raiders blame Carr for a lot of their nonsense. What are you a fan of, Derek?
Yeah, I know that you guys have adopted Power Hour there and maybe have a few cocktails, but I don't think that's the reason that you're saying what you're saying. I agree with you, and I haven't had Power Hour here yet. I think Derek Carr, much like you do, is maligned more than he should be. No one's had worse defenses over the course of his career than he has. And he has a bunch of fourth quarter comebacks because the defense has been bad and he's had to have those comebacks. And then you look at this season, how many of those games can you really say, okay, this was a Derek Carr problem? Not very many. Oftentimes it was a defensive collapse that put him in that situation.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because I think not only is Derek a good quarterback, but I think he gets better the second year in a system. And he's had to go through that with changing coordinators. It's could have been so much better had he had some more support around him from a defensive perspective than I think he's been given credit for.
Yeah, I think we don't. Maybe it's because of their rich history. Because both Washington and the Raiders, 70s, 80s, 90s, just a rich history. The Raiders are a lot closer to the Bears and the Lions and the Texans than the top of the league. Like they've been, I mean, Carr had 6 coaches. Can you imagine that? As a quarterback in 9, you got 6 coaches? New systems every year? I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is when you look at that progression too, the second year he's been in the system, typically he's a better quarterback, and Josh's system is tough to learn. I would have really liked to see him a second year in this system and see where he could have gone, especially if they improved defensively and gave him a chance from that perspective.
All right, Eric Mangini, we are strongly under consideration, the Power Hour. Cocktails last hour on a Friday. Not sure if we break some sort of FCC regulation, but we're willing to push the envelope on this show.
Yeah, I want to come into the studio for that.
Great seeing you, Coach. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.